welcome to Judica County. I am your host today, Josh Whitaker, an attorney with the law firm of Whitaker Hamer, and I am joined by
Taylor Scruggs-Smith
and Cassandra Nicholas,
attorneys also at Whitaker Hamer. Wanted to spend a minute talking about marital status in the context of a real estate closing. So marital status in North Carolina is very important when we talk about real estate, and we've talked about it before in other videos. In North Carolina, you're either married or you're not married, right? So you're either married or you're in this category, divorced, unmarried, things like that. Separated is not a legal status in North Carolina. Married, not married. And when you purchase property in North Carolina, you can technically purchase without a spouse. There is a statute that allows you to purchase without your spouse present if they're not on the deed. So that's North Carolina law. A lot of lenders, especially national lenders, if your spouse is going to be on the deed with you or you're going to get a mortgage, they're going to require your spouse to be present. Again, even if you've been separated for 11 years and you don't talk, but you're still married, your spouse is going to have to be involved. You wouldn't think that happens a lot, but that happens a lot. So marital status is very, very important, but there are some exceptions. And a lot of times we'll talk to you about these exceptions if this comes up in your closing. What's the exception you see most?
So one of the exceptions you see most is separation agreements. Those primarily tie more into purchases, though they can tie into refis. But separation agreements are a contract between the spouses that kind of details how they're splitting their property. But when it comes to purchases, most of the time it's also involving, okay, who's getting which property, who's getting bought out, or if they're selling, how that proceeds is getting dispersed.
Sure.
So that's especially important because for us as attorneys, unless we have a valid contract stating otherwise, proceeds get split 50-50 between the sellers. So if you are a separated couple and you guys are trying to split proceeds 60-40, we can't cut the check that way unless we have an agreement stating that that's how it's supposed to be. So those separation agreements have to already be signed, sent to us for review. Sometimes they may have some things that are missing that make them invalid, and we feel like they're not sufficient enough. So those separation agreements are very important.
I will tell you too, we run into a lot of problems without getting into specifics or kind of giving advice. If you're going to be buying, if you're getting separated and you're going to be buying a home, as a separation agreement, you're really going to have prepared by an attorney. There's specific things that attorneys are looking for in that separation agreement, and certain things you probably won't left out. So we'll have to record that separation agreement as part of your transaction. So it'll be a public record. That's what that means. We record it and put it on the public record. And so you want to make sure what we're recording doesn't have a lot of personal information in it, but does what it needs to do, has the language it needs to do, references the statutes it needs to reference. So an attorney is going to be pretty handy in that. But that's something we talk to a lot of people about.
Right.
Yeah. So that's our first exception. We also see another exception pretty often.
So you can also purchase a property with only your name on the deed, even though you're married, if you have a free trader agreement signed by your spouse. So this agreement would be something, for whatever reason, you are still married and do not want your spouse on the deed. You can have your spouse sign a free trader agreement ahead of time, and as long as that is already recorded with the Register of Deeds, you can go forward with the purchase with only your name on the deed.
So a separation agreement, obviously there's been some sort of, things aren't working out. You guys are going your separate ways. A free trader, a lot of folks who get married want to keep their finances and things as separate as possible, even if they're happily married. And so the free trader is kind of made for those folks. You can go ahead and buy your house. Your spouse won't have an interest in it because you have a signed free trader. And these are all contracts. So these are just agreements between the spouses on how to handle this interest. We won't talk about it too much here, but you also see folks with prenuptial and postnuptial agreements. And those kind of act the same way. Again, they have to be recorded. They have to be a public record to be effective as to real property. And so that can always cause some concern depending on what's in there. But I think that's a good, quick overview of marital status and how it affects a real property purchase. But again, if we can be of any service to you, you can reach us at 919-772-7000, or you can visit us at our website, wh.lawyer.